Hi, welcome to the Daily Beard for October 3rd, 2019. So, I think I might have already kind of talked about this, but I'm going to talk about something else with it. So, reading and concentration for what I'm doing now. So, I used to hate reading. Like, I was terrible at it as a kid. My dad used to bribe me with money to read books because he worked in the book industry, so he was like, come on, read. Although I don't remember him reading a ton, but it was important to him that I read. My sister loved reading, so she read a ton. I didn't, and something happened though once I hit my mid-teenage years, and all of a sudden I started reading a lot, and she stopped. And so yeah, it was this weird thing, and I started reading a bunch of different things. A lot of Canadian authors, because, from Canada, there's a guy named Farley Mowat, who's one of my favorite authors, a guy named Timothy Finley, who's a phenomenal author. And it was neat when they wrote books about Canada, and Timothy Finley wrote a bunch of books about Toronto and stuff, like, where it was set in Toronto. Instead of being set in New York, it was set in Toronto, because he's from Toronto, or at least he lives in Toronto. So I recognize some of the places he'd be writing about, which is cool. But anyways, I going into training college 15 years ago, however many years ago it was, at this point, 14 years ago, I read a lot. I read like 70 books the year before I went into training college, and a lot of them were thick, heavy, theological type books. I read some fiction, don't get me wrong, but I stopped reading after training college for a long time. Like, I'd read occasional books, but not often. But now I have to read a bunch. So I've read, in the last little while, now this is this thing. I've read all of the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey, read half the Aeneid, and then I listened to the other half of the Aeneid. Now, I once got in an argument with my best friend Brian about if you listen to a book, an audiobook, right? I get 100% that you've listened to the book, right? So you've listened to someone read it. Do you get to then say you've read the book? Because you didn't actually read, you listened. I'm not fighting that fight, but I'd love to know in the comments. I know Brian says you have. To me, I'm like, you haven't exactly read the book, you've listened to it. Because there is something to say about reading. It goes through the eyes, and your brain has to cognitively function and process the information, whereas in listening is completely different. So I don't know if I'd say you've read a book if you've just listened to it. So to me, I've read half the Aeneid, and then I listened to the other half of the Aeneid because of time crunch, and I got it on audio. So that's one thing. The other thing I want to talk about is while I'm trying to read at home, in particular, especially the science stuff I'm reading, but even the other stuff, I put headphones on quite often to read, and I listen to music, but I can't listen to like music with vocals because it would distract me and confuse me. So there's my niece just gave me these back. For those of you who don't know, there's a thing in Japan, an animation studio called Studio Ghibli, and you may know them from Spirited Away, and there's a guy named Hayao Miyazaki who's like their master. He's like their number one guy, Kiki's Delivery Service and stuff. And let's see if one of my favorites, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Anyway, they're all hand-drawn animation. They're amazing. If you've never watched Studio Ghibli films, you're missing out on a masterpiece of animation and filmmaking. They're some of the most gorgeous things ever made in film history. And Disney bought the rights to them and put American voice cast to them, and they did a pretty good job. So if you're like, I don't want to listen to subtitles or watch subtitles, you can do it that way too. But their music, though, there's some awesome themes, and I've just been going on YouTube and putting the internet on, obviously, and going on YouTube and listening to Studio Ghibli piano music. So it's either lifted directly from the films or someone has done the score all in piano, and I've listened to several of these, and they're just so enchanting and so easy to listen to, and still concentrate on what I've been doing. And so yeah, so today's all about reading, but like so now I read, and a lot of the time I listen to Studio Ghibli music or piano. Soundtracks are good, but like sometimes like they get very the don don, it's like Studio Ghibli doesn't do that. It's very light and whimsical for most of it. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of that. So it's all about reading and the different ways I read, and is listening to an audiobook reading. So I'd love your opinion on that, and I will link the one video that I listen to the most in the info section of this video if you're interested in listening to it, or even just hearing a bit of what I'm talking about. But that's all I got for today. Thank you for listening and watching, and you have a good day. God bless.